What's good, YouTube? It's Rico here, and I am going to review the May 2018 Forbidden Limited list that just came out earlier today. So overall, I think this is a pretty good list. I don't agree with everything that happened, but overall, I think it is, like, it does what it needs to do. It addresses the problems I had with the format, and I feel like most people had with the format. But yeah, so let's just get into it. So first off, like right off the bat, like number one change, I think, in both alphabetically and in terms of importance, is Astrograph Sorcerer getting banned. I love Pendulum. It's probably my favorite summoning mechanic. I've played Pendulum nonstop for years, and this is, like, Astrograph Sorcerers is completely fucking busted. This card should not have been legal, especially not with Electromite around. It's just, like, you generate so much advantage off of both of them together. And I definitely think Astrograph Sorcerer was the better hit, because Astrograph, like, before Electromite, Astrograph Sorcerer didn't really do anything. Like, there were a couple, like, neat plays you could do, but nothing that was really super good. But then, like, so, like, without Electromite, Astrograph didn't really do anything. But Electromite, I feel, brings stuff to the table for Pendulum. Like, Pendulum becomes better with Electromite under the new Master Rule with Link Summoning. So I think Electromite actually brings good things to the Pendulum mechanic. But, like, Astrograph and Electromite together are way too powerful. So I definitely think Astrograph getting banned was a really good choice. I do think Pendulum is not dead. Like, Pendulum is still very much playable even without Astrograph. The deck that, like, Magician has too many, like, generically good cards for me to, like, simply write it off as not good anymore. But yeah. And right after that, the other main problem card of the format was Masterpiece, and that's banned too. I fucking hate Masterpiece. I am so glad it's gone. The card's, like, mere existence, I felt, invalidated half of the decks that could have potentially been viable. Like, this is the trend I saw as the format progresses. Like, when the Haas list first came out, everyone was like, man, there's so many viable decks. And then as time progressed, like, True Draco just kept, like, doing better and better, and other things just kept falling off until it was really just, like, Pendulum Magician, which had the answers to True Draco, and then True Draco itself. Because, like, Masterpiece, like, once it hits the board, like, if your deck doesn't have an inherent out to it, like, you're probably just screwed. So decks like Trickstar, Paleozoic, Burning Abyss, Ultrageist, I guess now is a deck. There's so many decks that were just invalidated by the existence of Masterpiece. I personally believe that Zephyra was invalidated by Masterpiece, along with its inherent, like, breaking problem that I seem to constantly run into. But, like, just the fact that, like, drop Masterpiece, win the game, and, like, its existence forced certain decks to either accept that they were going to lose to Masterpiece or, like, build their deck in a way where they didn't. So, like, play Kaijus, play Dark Hole, play outs to Masterpiece in general. So it's a really toxic card. I am really glad it's gone. It's not something that should exist, because I think a card whose mere existence forces you to build your deck in a certain way is generally not healthy for the game. If it's so overwhelming that, like, you have to build your deck in this way just because if you run into it, you don't, like, automatically lose to it. So yeah. This was a preemptive hit. It's Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis. This is to address the plant FTK that was running around the OCG for, like, a few months. OCG also banned Amaryllis, but essentially it's like, I don't know the exact specifics, but essentially you got, I think it's 8 plants. Yeah, because Amaryllis banishes to summon itself and then burns for 1,000. So you drop Amaryllis under Topologic Bomber Dragon, and then during the end phase you banish a plant to revive Amaryllis and burn for 1,000, and then Topologic blows up again, and you just do that 8 times and you burn them, which is completely fucking degenerate, and Amaryllis is not good for anything else. So that's a good ban, just to get that out of the way before we get the plant cards, which is, I think, just the Oromage Link is what we're missing, and Dandelion, but yeah, you know. So yeah, that's a good preemptive hit. They did address every single FTK, which is, I think, next to banning Astrograph and banning Masterpiece, that was probably the single most important thing they needed to do with this list, was address every FTK, because there were 2 running around in the last format, and there was one that we were 1 card away from getting, and they addressed all of them. So next is they banned Supreme King Dragon's Starving Venom. I don't entirely agree with this. I think the better hit would have been Independent Nightingale, because that card has done nothing but FTKs. Like, Tyrant Neptune is banned because of Nightingale. Starving Venom is now banned because of Nightingale, so why not just ban Nightingale? Because that card is not used for anything besides inflicting stupid amounts of burn, just by having something copy it and have a like really high level. And I think Starving Venom was a really good card in Pendulum Magician, because like the copy ability just had so much utility. I don't think it was necessarily broken, but it was definitely very good, so I guess maybe that's why they decided to ban Starving Venom. Because Starving Venom was also like a really good answer to Reaper, because if they Reaper your Electromite, you just copy the Electromite with Starving Venom or whatever, after you put it back in the graveyard with Omega. So like, I don't know, I think Independent Nightingale would have been a better choice, but this effectively does the job while also nerfing Pendulum more. But so like the Pendulum FTK is gone, which is what matters. So I don't entirely agree with this, but I think it did what it was supposed to do. Ancient Fairy Dragon is banned. This is a weird one, because like Ancient Fairy Dragon hasn't really like dominated anything, but I also think as time has gone on, Ancient Fairy Dragon has gotten more and more stupid, especially with Ravine and Destrudo. Like Ancient Fairy Dragon does some really ridiculous shit in like Spiral, ABC, some other thing I'm probably forgetting. I do think this is probably a step in the right direction, because this isn't the first time Ancient Fairy Dragon's been a problem. It was a problem back with like Divine Wind and Gen X Ally Birdman or something, and then apparently it's gonna like there's something stupid involving Golden Castle of Stromberg. Was like they keep making really good field spells, and as like because Ancient Fairy Dragon can just search them out, and because you can search Ancient Fairy Dragon essentially with Dragon Ravine and Destrudo, I do think this was a good move. It's kind of preemptive, but kind of also like it was kind of reaching that point where it was getting really good anyway, and OCG did this like a couple months ago. So overall, I think Ancient Fairy Dragon being banned is a good move. It stops Dragon Ravine from being search literally any spell card, any field spell in your deck, and then get a free special summon at the cost of your battle phase, which on the first turn doesn't matter. So I don't think this actually kills anything. Spiral can still play without Ancient Fairy Dragon. ABC can still play without Ancient Fairy Dragon, especially now that they both have the Nightmare cards. So yeah. That's all the monsters, man. There's 2 spells, I think. Yeah, one of those rank up Magic Argent Chaos Force. I'm actually really glad they did this, because the whole time waiting for the list, I was thinking, okay, so if they ban Astrograph, what if they leave Utopic Zexal alone, and then everyone's going to focus on that instead? And I think Utopic Zexal is really dumb. Just like locking your opponent out of the game entirely is really stupid. So I'm really glad that they banned Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force. I think it either had to be that or Utopic Zexal itself. Or Beatrice, but that would have been really stupid. So that definitely, that's a good hit. It gets rid of that. So now, like, Pendulum's not going to do anything that just sets up a board and says you can't play. They can still do like Vortex and shit, but they're not going to drop like 3 things super easily. They'd have to have like an absolute god hand, but they can still do like Vortex, like maybe something else, but that's not broken. That's not telling your opponent you can't play the game. Yeah. And then I am actually really happy for this hit is that they banned Grass Looks Greener. Grass, I think, is also under the camp of this card is so good that when it's relevant, it forces you to build your deck in a certain way. And now we haven't seen that in about a year. Like, the last time Grass was so powerful that it forced people to play around it through deck building was back in, like, last March or whatever, when, like, 60-card decks were the best decks in the format, and people were building 60-card decks simply to counter Grass. Like, I went to a regional with a 50-card Metal Foes deck that's just so I can make Grass weaker. And when a card is so powerful that you are playing more cards to counter it, and that's the sole reason, I think that's really dumb. Now, Grass hadn't been like that since they limited it, but I still think Grass was too much of like a momentum swinging card where, like, if your opponent opened Grass and it resolved, you just lose. Like, it's just like they play Grass and like have the Ash or just lose the game, because it doesn't matter like if they mill a bunch of shitty cards, they're probably gonna mill something out of like the 20 cards they're about to mill, and they're just gonna win the game from there. I think the only time I've seen a mill 20 off of a Grass and still won was when it was my friend who wasn't even playing like Lightsworn Zombie or like Dino or anything. He was playing some rogue thing that happened to play 60 cards, so he just didn't get any good mills. But like in an actual like meta deck, if they mill 20, they're winning the game, and I don't like things like that. And I think like Grass at 1 didn't do anything because there was still effectively 4 copies because of left arm offering. So I definitely think it's a really good move. I know like it kills off 60 card decks essentially. Like Lightsworn might still play 60 just because it plays so many engines that it's kind of, to me, it feels more consistent at 60. But overall, like, it does kill off 60 card decks, but I don't really think that's a big problem. It does kind of suck, but like, it's such a degenerate card that I'm pretty glad it's gone. So that's all the banned cards. I think it was like 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 8. It was 8. So limits, there was only 3, but one of them is they brought back Dynamite Knight to 1. I think this is fine with Masterpiece banned. I was a little iffy on it when I thought about it, but I think I would much rather prefer them having Dynamite than having Masterpiece for sure. Because at least this turns Draco into a grind deck instead of a sit on my big monster and watch you struggle to kill it deck. I think that's a lot better. I do think 1 Dynamite's probably okay. I think 3 would be a bit much because the trap cards are some of the best cards in that deck. But 1 I'm definitely okay with Masterpiece gone. Gemini Master Diamond. This is another one that I think is a little odd. I admittedly know very little about the Gemini FTK. I never bothered to learn it. I never ran into it in a tournament. But from what I understood, the main problem in the deck was Lapis Lazuli, because she was the card that actually burned, so I think it would have been smarter to ban her. But I think the combo used 2 Master Diamonds for like the 5,000 or whatever, so I guess this is okay. I mean, it deals with the Gemini FTK, but like with Starving Venom, I think there was a better way to do it. But this effectively solves the problem, so it's whatever. And then it's not like Gemnight's going to do anything outside of this FTK. And then the last limit was Chain Strike. And that, to me, is probably the single weirdest thing on this list. Like, out of all the cards to hit, why Chain Strike? Because, like, Chain Word's not really doing anything. And it hasn't been doing anything since, like, Nats. And the only reason it really did anything at Nash was because it just had a surprisingly good matchup against Zoo. I lost to Chamber in round 1, like, of course. But, like, this is just so out of the blue. Like, why would they limit Chain Strike? If anything, I would have expected Chain Strike to go to 3 or just stay at 2. This is just such an off-the-wall hit. And I can't think of anything coming up that would make Chainburn broken. Unless they have some exclusive in mind plan that we don't know anything about. But like, I really don't know why they limited Chain Strike, but I guess. Yeah, that is all the limits. Semi-limits, there's really nothing. They put Towers to 2 and they put Ring of Destruction to 2. Both of these are irrelevant. Nobody's going to play Klee because it's trash now, and Ring of Destruction, it could probably go to 3. I think Konami's slowly realizing, or at least maybe they have realized and are slowly easing it up, that like semi-limiting is pretty useless because most cards, like 99% of the card pool, will do the same thing at 2 that they would do at 3. And the few cards that actually do something different at 2 than they do at 3 are either no longer broken at 3, so like Reborn Tengu and Malicious, which used to be broken at 3 and got put to 2 and they were fair, and then now with Power Creep they're fine. Or it's something like Rat Pier where it's really broken at 3, it's less broken at 2, but it's still broken at 2, so they have to put it at 1. But like there's really nothing that would make a difference at 2 or 3. Like there's 7 semi-limited cards and they could all go to 3 and make no difference, more or less. So I feel like over time we might eventually just see the semi-limited list disappear. So, and then the unlimits, Atlantean Dragoons, I am in love with that change, just because I love water, I love Atlantean, I love Mermail. It realistically doesn't really do enough to help the deck. It's still not that great, but it's something. Like, it does make the deck better, but it's like, it's just something that it's really cool that Dragoons is finally back at 3, but like Mermail's not going to do anything super broken with an extra Dragoons. Grand Soil, this is because it got errated, so it's hard once per turn, which makes it completely fine now. You can't loop it forever anymore. Ignis Heat, I'm okay with this too because they banned Masterpiece, and also Diagram's still at 3, so I think Draco's in a really interesting spot where it's no longer like sitting on Masterpiece, but it still has the grind game, which I think is the best part about Draco. Like, Draco as a grind deck that just like plays like a resource game. I think that's really cool. It kind of sucks that it can still sit on floodgates really easily, but like I'll take that as I'll take floodgates in a grind game over floodgates and masterpiece. So I'm okay with Ignis Heat at 3, and I'm okay with Draco or Dynamite Knight at 1 since masterpiece is banned. Mathematician at 3, that didn't really do anything. Grand Mole at 3, that should have happened like 10 years ago. And, well, maybe not 10, but like 5. And then Compulse at 3, that should have happened like 5 years ago or something. They didn't unban Construct. I actually thought they were going to because we got shit all Construct, but nope, she's still there. So Konami just hates us. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really good list. Compared to the last list, I'd say it's probably about on equal footing. It does what it needs to do. It addresses the major problems in the format. I think it opens up the doorway to a lot more decks. So like everything that was like really weak to Masterpiece. So like I said, Trickstar, Paleozoic, Burning Abyss, Altergeist. Those are all going to be really good. Altergeist was probably going to be one of the best decks in the format just because of Multi-Faker. I think Draco will still do something because it still has the grind game. I don't know if it will be like top tier or like the best, but I would predict that it would be up there. I still think Magician can do something. It needs a major retool because obviously you can't do Astrograph shit anymore, and that was like a major focus of Pendulum Magician in the last format. But Magician has so many generically good cards that I don't think it's dead. Like Wisdom Eye, Oath Dragon, Star Pendulum Graph, Time Pendulum Graph, Harmonizing Magician, Purple Poison. There's so many good, like just generically good cards in Pendulum Magician that I don't think it's dead even without Astrograph. And like even without Skullcrobat and without Double Iris Magician, it's still just a really good thing. Like Pendulum Call is also a really good card. So, and like they didn't hit Dark Worm, so the Dark Worm engine is still viable. So like I think Magician is fine. Altergeist, like I said, Draco, Trickstar is still good. Invoked is still good. Paleozoic is probably gonna do better now without Draco running around. Burning Abyss might be a better like tier 2 or 3 choice. It's still not super great, but they did get Light of Sekka, which I think is kind of fun to mess around with. But like Burning Abyss is just like always like decent, and the biggest thing that killed it was like a shitty Pendulum matchup and a shitty Draco matchup, and the list fixes both of those, so it might still be like a decent like rogue or tier 3 choice. We're gonna get Sky Striker Ace or like Sentoki or Brandish Maiden or whatever like by the end of this month, and that's predicted to be one of the best, if not the best decks. I don't know how it'll fare in the TCG, because in the OCG they have Needle Fiber, which makes Hornet Bit absolutely busted. And like TCG, I've noticed it has like a breaking problem, but when it goes off, it goes off. So I don't know. I'm expecting Sky Striker to be really good. I don't know if it would be the best. If I were to pick, like, predict what I would think would be the best, it'd probably be between Sky Striker, Altergeist, or Draco, and like maybe Magician if something is found that makes it just insane. And I guess Zephyra would also be a thing, but I think Zephyra still has issues of like being really reliant on Zephyrath, kind of like clunky, and just like it has 2 specific skills that it needs to have its like its best plays, which were Gate Zero and Zephyrath. And like if you don't have one of those, then your plays are just kind of weak, I feel. And that's really the biggest problem with Zephyrath. And also just lack of Danglong and lack of Needle Fiber means like you're not setting up 5 disruptions like you can in the OCG. But Zephyra's still like a pretty good deck. I just don't know if it's as good as Magician or not. Especially with like Red Reboot now. So like searching traps is like, oh well, Red Reboot, so I don't know. That's my basic thoughts. I think the list is really good. I'm excited to see how the format evolves. I don't know what I'm going to play. I'm going to try Magician for a little bit, but I also have all the pieces for Altergeist, so I might try that. I'm not the biggest fan of control decks or like stun decks. I like the idea of them, but I am not naturally tuned to play them. I'm much more of an aggressive player, but I'm interested in trying it. But those are like the 2 things that I have in mind, and then I might play Sky Striker when it comes out. But yeah. Yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the list. Yeah. Thanks for watching YouTube. I'll see you next time.